On this episode of Let's Explore This, we will be exploring Panther Creek, a little hamlet in Graham County, North Carolina. Panther Creek, it is one of the four primary creeks that largely define the south shore of Fontana Lake, the other three being Stacoa, Sawyers, and Tuskegee Creeks. This here, it is Highway 28, one of the three main highways that traverse Graham County, the other two being Highways 129 and 143. Panther Creek, the community. It is located along Highway 28, not far from the Swain County line. It is essentially the first community to be found while traveling north on Highway 28. Originally, this episode, it was also going to include the long-forgotten town of Japan. However, Japan is listed on some gazetteers as a standalone community. Therefore, it is beyond the scope of this particular episode, requiring an episode all its own. This here is a snapshot of the web page for the online edition of the 1972 Graham County Centennial. There is an excerpt deep within this book that focuses on the Panther Creek community. The majority of the information culled from this episode can actually be found right here. There will, however, be one brief exception that does involve another source. That will be coming towards the end of this episode. What we have here is the W.R. Ammons house, which was once situated somewhere along Panther Creek. Where? Who knows, but it does show that Panther Creek did have its fair share of old and likely forgotten rural home sites and farmsteads. This here, it is the Yaman farmstead. Likely, it is where the house that you just saw once stood. And here are just some people who once, many, many decades ago, called Panther Creek their home. Now, Panther Creek, it can actually be divided into two sections. The most prominent section might be that which is defined right here by Lower Panther Creek Road. It is the one that holds those stunning lakefront views. The more forested section lies to the south, defined by Upper or simply just Panther Creek Road. With that said, a full-on discussion of logging in Graham County, that is beyond the scope of this episode. 'Cause, there are other communities within the county, such as Milltown, that are much more fit for a more in-depth discussion of the logging history. As far as Panther Creek goes, the center of the logging industry relative to this area, it technically was not here. No, it was a bit further down in Swain County, in the now submerged town of Judson. Therefore, an episode on Judson would be more fit for that. 'Cause that is where the Whiting Manufacturing Company, which did operate here in the Panther Creek vicinity, had its band mill located. That company, it went on to extend narrow gauge tracks up many of the drainages in Graham County. Panther Creek just happened to be one of a number of them. Of course, today, in 2022, the year this episode was compiled, there is little logging to be found in the area. And those old railroads, the ones that once dominated this and other drainages, they have been pulled decades ago. That is pretty much all there is relative to logging in the Panther Creek vicinity. There were a couple of logging camps once present in the area, but beyond that, there is not much else to discuss in regards to logging in the Panther Creek vicinity that would not be better fit for other more pronounced regions, such as Judson or Milltown. Panther Creek, overall, it has always been a relatively small community, which remains even the case today. Panther Creek, it does not appear on many maps as a distinct community. Regardless, Panther Creek, it must have been big enough to warrant a somewhat lengthy school history. Interestingly, Panther Creek, it has had four schools, believe it or not. The sites of the first and of one other are now located at the bottom of that lake right there. And so, the first school, it was located just below where this here creek, Wolf Creek, flows into Panther Creek, at where Jack Pilkington once owned a farm. According to the Find a Grave page for Reverend General Jackson Jack Pilkington, if this is in fact the same Jack Pilkington who owned that farm, then he is the son of Nathan Moses Pilkington, and that puts him in the bloodline of the so called pioneer Pilkingtons, as discussed in this book. Also, a Wash Carver, he went to that school as a young boy, possibly referencing this man, George Washington Carver. Hey, look, Big Horse Bridge. What in Graham County could be up this road? Big Horse Bridge or Branch? Yeah, there is a bridge here, but folks, I am sorry to say, I would love to find out what is up there, but I am kind of short on time for this episode, so I have no choice. I will have to pass. But don't fret. The one thing you will get to see is what's below this bridge, a nice view of Panther Creek. Here it is, on this side of the bridge. And that's an awesome view, huh? Well, let's move on now to the other side of this, I guess, Big Horse Bridge. And here it is, on that other side. And given it's almost 80 degrees out, it's kind of hot. I would love to jump in there to get cool, but once again, I hate to say it, I am kinda pressed for time. Regardless, though, this area, according to this map, it does hold a horse branch. So, what's that bridge called? I don't know, but folks, now we will need to get back on this road here, Upper Panther Creek Road, and ride it all the way to the end. You see, the second and probably additional school, it was established at the head of Panther Creek near the Band Mill Village. Yes, as I said a bit earlier, Panther Creek did have its own logging camp. And apparently, it may have even had a band mill. No photos could I find, though. But probably that village, it held houses for the loggers who worked in this area. Yeah, those houses, they appear to be gone today. However, at the head of Panther Creek, huh. Well, I traveled up Upper Panther Creek Road, or just simply Panther Creek Road, all the way to the end. And for the last mile, I guess, it is a dirt road littered with a bunch of campsites strewn along at least one side. So apparently, there is this. I don't know, obscure campground located on the upper reaches of Panther Creek today in 2022. This, though, it is not exactly the head of Panther Creek. Likely that is a ways up there, probably a few miles or so. I didn't look on a map or anything, but Panther Creek here, it is still flowing downstream. So we can't be at the head, at least not exactly. Yeah, I suppose they could say the village was located at the head, meaning it was, I don't know, close enough that it was just said to be at the head. And maybe those roads from those old days have been turned into, I don't know, I guess maybe the hiking trails you find today or something. And maybe, just maybe, that may not all be far from the truth because, well, here we can't go any further, but if you were to walk, you certainly could. But, folks, today I do not have that kind of time. No time for a long hiking trip up this trail. Sorry. Even if I did, though, I am not sure if I would find anything substantial at the head of Panther Creek, wherever that might be, at least as of today in 2022. Okay, so not far down from the gate over there, the one at where the road ends, we have another gate. Road closed. Do not block gate. But that does not mean that I can't go around it and walk down this trail, which is what I am going to do for just a tad bit. So, folks, let's see where this trail leads. And it leads right to the bank of Panther Creek. Now, of course, this road would be closed, at least for vehicular traffic, because I would not attempt to get my car across this creek to get to that road on the other side, which doesn't even look too promising a drive. Nonetheless, I guess if you don't mind getting your feet wet, or if you put on, say, I don't know, galoshes or something, you could easily walk across the creek to get over there. However, as for me, as of right now, I am staying right here on this bank of Panther Creek where there once was apparently a band mill village. Well, actually, I have to move on. Now, this does look like it has seen better days, but folks, tell me, was this once used as part of that band mill village? Or was it just a farm structure? You know, a Charles Jenkins, he was born in that village in 1889. Could this be that person? Not sure. The year is a few years off, and the burial says Swain County. However, it also says that this person is buried in Panther Creek Cemetery. So, yeah, certainly not sure, but it is believed that this second school, it may have been here before even that date. This woman, Martha Bradshaw, she went to that very village school about 1910 or 11. Then, 2 years later, at about 8 or 9 years of age, she attended a new school established at the upper end of the Jack Pilkington farm, that farm near Wolf Creek. And so, this division of Panther Creek into two districts that must have taken place around 1912. Now, the school for the lower Panther Creek district, it was held in the Methodist Church in the area later known as Old Japan, the site of the first post office by that name. And here, the roads, they were said to have forked. One branch following the creek to the river, and the other, it led to the railroad station at Judson. Yes, I am showing you some roads in the Panther Creek area. I certainly doubt, however, that they are the ones being referenced because, well, as you likely can be able to tell, that large area down there, it is now beneath the waters of Fontana Lake. I mean, yeah, where I am now standing is still above the lake. Of course, though, not much here today appears to just be a little creek flowing into a big river. 'Cause, Fontana Lake, it is a large lake, and at the confluence of it and the Little Tennessee River, yeah, that is now terribly swollen. But there is one interesting find over here. It is like right over here. It's not much. An interesting find, I guess. I guess they call this area the Fontana Lake Retreat, as the sign over here can attest, but on the ground next to that, we have this old ladder of sorts. It kind of looks historic. It's a bit rusty, but historic, maybe. Not sure what it would be used for. Maybe for a boat dock? Today, though, in 2022, it appears to just be laying right there, next to that tree. What a poor ladder. Oh well. Now, as stated earlier, Japan, which is how it is pronounced, not the same as the country of the seemingly same word. It is beyond the scope of this episode. That church building, though, it was still used as a Methodist church, possibly as late as the early 1920s. Now, this, and the one at the upper end of Jack Pilkington's farm, well, they were the ones consolidated in 1926 into this, the Stacoa High School. And this school, it is located not in Panther Creek, but in Stacoa. Therefore, that is also beyond the scope of this particular episode. However, we do need to talk about it just a tad bit. You see, in 1925, people were talking of consolidating the schools in the much larger Stacoa Township into a high school located, yeah, in Stacoa. But consolidation, it was impossible under the existing steep road grades. Yes, mountain roads, they can be gnarly. So the county commissioners, they began this road building program. So, folks, tell me, where do you think that first section of graded road began? No, not in Stacoa. Maybe they had a few graded roads by that time already, I don't know. But no, that first section of graded road, it was begun in 1925 at the Swain County line, right here in Panther Creek. So, this school, do you now see why we had to talk about it just briefly? Yeah, it was not entirely beyond the scope of this episode. Now, that road, that first graded road, it was completed sufficiently in 1926 to allow the two Panther Creek schools to be consolidated with this here high school. Well, not this exact one, but the one it replaced, the one completed in 1926. Let's move on now to this here, the Panther Creek Baptist Church. The first church site for that one, however, it was not at this location. Reportedly, initially, it was located on top of the hill at the cemetery of which I am assuming to be this one right here, the Panther Creek Cemetery. No location or name of cemetery is given, so all I can do is make an educated guess. But yes, roads leading to the site, they were steep. Regardless, the church was still used for many years. However, in 1917, another church was built at the foot of the hill below the Jack Pilkington farm. And the site of that one, I hate to say it, but It is now buried beneath that lake right there. But prior to the arrival of the lake, the road to this, I guess, second church, it followed the contour of the mountain rather than going over it. Well, after the deluge, then came the site of this church, built farther up Panther Creek, in fact, far enough to be located on the opposite of this here Highway 28. And that, yes, that pretty much sums up the history of Panther Creek. However, we are not exactly done with this area just yet. You see, there is one more site you should be aware of, and it is situated only a very short distance north off Highway 28 from Panther Creek Road. This here, it is Tobacco Branch Road. For the most part, it parallels the course of Tobacco Branch, a tributary of Panther Creek. Now, I am not going to be delving much into the history of this region. From its name, though, I suspect possibly some of the area around here may have, a very long time ago, been used in tobacco production. Not sure, but today, well, it's a development, a subdivision in the mountains. Wow, what do we have here? A small motel, maybe? It certainly does appear as if it could act as such. Reportedly, though, it's a large home, a 5-bedroom home built in 1976. If it was in fact built during that year, a deed does indicate it was built as part of Tobacco Branch Village. Apparently, this Tobacco Branch development, it was around in those days. In fact, deed research does indicate that the earliest entry for Tobacco Branch Village is from 1970. Overall, though, this house, this large 5-bedroom home, also has an additional bathroom, a 1-bath apartment, 3 fireplaces, 2 kitchens in the main house, an attached workshop, a screened in porch, decks on all levels, and, yeah, a small stream, likely Tobacco Branch, does run through the property. What we have here is a 1992 letter to Panther Mountain Estates from the North Carolina Department of Environment, Health, and Natural Resources. In it, it talks about a dam being located on a tributary to Tobacco Branch. Well, where there's a dam, there is usually a lake. And here we have a lake right on Tobacco Branch. Could this be the one? More like a pond, but not sure, 'cause it still appears not to be a tributary. Here is a map of the area. According to maps, Tobacco Branch does not seem to have tributaries, at least none that are significant. It could be a small brook or a wash, I guess, one too small to be shown on a typical road map or something. Or maybe, just maybe, it is referencing simply this here lake and its dam. Well, they do reference a dam that was built on a tributary of Tobacco Branch. I am not sure, though, I would call this a dam. In some way, I guess it is. It looks almost as if the water is being pumped from over there. Not sure if that's what those pipes there are for, though. But certainly the water, it is going back down into there. And I imagine all of this water is probably coming from Tobacco Branch, but I don't see where Tobacco Branch enters. But maybe it's over there. Though, we're not going to be going over there. You see, this entire site, it is something of a private area. and I am, just maybe, pushing my luck on even being here at this lake. Whatever the case, we do have to move on to our next destination, wherever that might be. See you, I don't know, throw a dart on a map and pick a spot.